Afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the session of the Development Review Board. I'm Kathleen Littlefield, and I am chairing tonight. First of all, we'll do a call to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Councilwoman Littlefield.
Present.
Vice Chair Brand.
Here.
Commissioner Ertel.
Here.
Board Member Pieser.
Here.
Board Member Fakih. Board Member Mason.
Here.
Board Member Robinson.
Here.
6 present. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is the public comment for non-agendized items. Citizens may address the members of the Development Review Board during public comment. This time is reserved at the beginning of the meeting for citizens to comment on non-agendized items that are within the purview of the Development Review Board and is limited to a total of 15 minutes. Arizona state law prohibits the Development Review Board from discussing or taking action on these non-agendized items. Speakers may submit a blue request to speak card, like this, in person prior to the beginning of the meeting. Public testimony is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Written comment is also being accepted for non-agendized items and may be submitted in person at the hearing or electronically at the Development Review Board website. Written comments submitted electronically will be emailed to the Development Review Board members. Do we have any public comment cards?
Chair Littlefield, we do have some comment cards on agendized items, but for non-agendized items, we do not.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll hold the cards for agendized items until we come to those items. Okay. Next, we have an administrative report by Mr. Brad Carr.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to welcome you, Chair Littlefield. Thanks for joining us today, filling in for Vice Mayor Dubascus. Also wanted to thank Commissioner Ertel. This, I think, will be the last of your meetings with the DRB for this rotation anyway, so thank you for your time. Also wanted to note that we will be having our next meeting about 3 weeks from now on June 5th. We have several cases to review on that agenda, so we look forward to seeing you then. That concludes my administrative report for today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next on our agenda today is the minutes. We need approval of the May 1st, 2025 Development Review Board regular meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'll move to approve the regular meeting minutes of May 1st, 2025 Development Review Board as presented.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Please register your vote.
Councilwoman Littlefield.
Yes.
Vice Chair Brand.
Yes.
Commissioner Ertel.
Yes.
Board Member Pieser.
Yes.
Board Member Mason.
Yes.
Board Member Robinson.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On the action items next, how the action agenda works. The Development Review Board may take one vote to act on all the items on the continuance agenda and or consent agenda, or may remove individual items for further discussion as appropriate. The Development Review Board takes separate action on each of the items on the regular agenda. Persons interested in speaking on any of these agenda items may submit a blue request to speak card, like this one, in person prior to the beginning of the public testimony. Those wishing to speak are customarily given 3 minutes to speak on each item. Additional time may be granted to a designated speaker representing 2 or more persons, and please submit the cards together. Persons interested in submitting a written comment on any item may submit a yellow written comment card in person prior to the beginning of the public testimony, or may submit electronically at the Development Review Board website no later than 90 minutes prior to the meeting. Do we have any cards like that were submitted electronically? Thank you. That was a no. Okay, moving on to the continuance agenda. Item number 3. It's 37-DR-2024 at 4242 North Scottsdale Road. This is a request by the owner for a continuance of development application 37DR 2024 to the June 5th, 2025 Development Review Board meeting. Our contact is Greg Bloomberg. Our applicant is Ryan Joke.
I'll move to continue case 37DR 2024 to the June 5th Development Review Board hearing.
Second.
Any discussion? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilwoman Littlefield,
Yes?
Vice Chair Brand,
Yes.
Commissioner Ertel,
Yes.
Board Member Peaser,
Yes.
Board Member Mason,
Yes.
Board Member Robinson.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have our consent agenda. We have one item on that agenda, 2-DR-2025, which is the Casante Commons. Request for the approval of a site plan, landscape plan, and building elevations for a new 189-unit multifamily residential building as a part of a larger mixed-use development on a plus or minus 8.6 acre site located at 7,000 East Shea Boulevard with planned unit development, planned shared district zoning. The contact is Teresa Forberg. Since this is on consent, do I have a motion to approve?
Councilwoman, I'd like to ask if the applicant could come up to answer a question real quick that I have on the case.
Absolutely. The applicant here?
Hi, I'm Laura Eder with ESG Architects.
Great. Real quick, just for the board's knowledge, I had a meeting with the applicant prior to the hearing today in which we discussed the case at length. I think the things that, in full disclosure, the things that we spoke about that I want to make sure that we add on to the approval motion is to continue to work with staff on the color selection of the building as well as the color material selection on the building. I think everything is intact, but there was some concern over how the project was represented in the renderings. The color balance, I think, was off. There was a differentiation between the elevations, which were not shadowed, and so there was some difficulty in picking up the depth of the elevation, of which they've addressed and have brought forth the actual building materials here today for review, which I think do actually address the concern. But I think the profile of the roof accent piece was also a question. So I just wanted to notify the applicant that I'll be making a motion to and adding on a stipulation to work with the color selection and the roof profile with staff.
We'd be happy to do that.
Great, thank you. With that, I'm up for a motion unless anyone else has a question.
I'll second your motion.
Oh, I got to make it. I have to make it first.
I
So.
thought you said you wanted to approve it. I'm sorry.
I'm going to move to approve case 2-DR-2025 per the staff recommended stipulations, in addition to recommended stipulation to work with staff on the color and roof profile detail after finding that the development application meets the applicable development review board criteria.
Now I'll second it. Any further discussion on this item? May I have a roll call vote?
Councilwoman Littlefield,
Yes.
Vice Chair Brand,
Yes.
Commissioner Ertel,
Yes.
Board Member Peaser,
Yes.
Board Member Mason,
Yes.
Board Member Robinson.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you very much. Next, we move on to our regular agenda for today. We have one item on that, 12-PP-1995, number 2, Desert Summit, Lot 34, the building envelope. I have a presentation.
Good afternoon, Councilwoman Littlefield, Commissioner Ertel, members of the Development Review Board. My name is Jeff Barnes with the city's planning department, presenting 12 PP 1995 number 2, which is the Desert Summit Lot 34 building envelope. The request before you today is a request by the owner to modify a previously approved building envelope for Lot 34 within the Desert Summit subdivision, as was established through the preliminary plat case approval 12 PP 1995. Going into a little bit of visual context for you here, the Desert Summit subdivision is generally located north of Jomax and west of 118th Street. Lot 34 specifically is in the northern portion of that subdivision in the yellow highlighted site on the screen here. A very much closer in view of that and our zoning indication here. So this Lot 34 falls within the R170 ESL zoned portion of the Desert Summit subdivision. The lot, as you see there on the screen, fronts onto 112th Place and angles its way back as it moves up the hill to the higher elevation of the rear of that lot. Because the limits of Desert Summit are a little bit difficult to gauge from that first aerial photo I showed you, I just wanted to provide this slide as a little bit better context, outlining in the black dashed lines the overall development. As you can see a little better, it extends all the way over to 118th Street, all the way down to Jomax, and has that upper portion where the highlighted Lot 34 is located in the yellow highlight there. You might also be able to gauge a little bit from this overhead view the open space area that exists between homes in that portion of the site, which is more unique to that area of the development than some of the other southern and eastern portions of that development. Getting into the purpose, the goal of this request, the applicant is seeking to modify the location of the conceptual building envelope for this lot, which was established through conceptual graphics in the zoning and preliminary plat approval actions. They would like to take it from the current position, which is located at the lower elevation of the lot up closer to the street, and move it to a new location at the higher elevation of the lot towards the south end, further up the hillside. And I'll have some visuals that'll probably help that a little better as we go. Some key items for consideration for you today. In our review of this application, staff has identified concerns that the building envelope modification as proposed appears inconsistent with the prior stipulations of the zoning and preliminary plat cases and those exhibit documents I mentioned, also with the purpose of ESL and the open space location guidelines driven for NAOS and the preservation of open space. And because of those things, staff finds concerns that the Development Review Board criteria are not being met, as those speak more directly to conformance to existing zoning stipulations, the environmentally sensitive lands overlay, et cetera. Additionally, attached to the staff report, we did receive various public input, and generally that input had expressed opposition, but that was provided to you for your consideration as well. Walking through some of the history to this, as I've alluded to it, but getting into the details. So this development started out with a zoning action 76 ZN 1992, which was approved in 1993, setting up what was then called Desert Sun, that became Desert Summit residential subdivision. There was an amendment processed to that zoning action in 1995 that modified some of the stipulations addressing some increases in the square footage of building envelopes, reductions in the previously specified natural area open space separation dimensions between those building envelopes, and there was allowance in there from that action of a meandering perimeter wall to the subdivision, which doesn't necessarily impact this, but providing it to you for context of those changes. The preliminary plat case, the for Desert Summit came through as 12 pp 1995, was approved in 1995, and included in it an NAOS plan conveying the building envelopes, carrying forward the idea of those as directed from the zoning case approvals that preceded it. Also, as those had made reference to that NAOS separation distance, that was part of what was conveyed in that NAOS exhibit. Looking at some of those key stipulations that spoke to, that highlighted building envelopes out of the zoning action, these three I have for you on the screen, and I'll just walk quickly through them. But the first talks about all NAOS between building envelopes being shown on the development plan and not being less than 60 feet separated between them. The second refers to building envelopes and the maximum size of those not exceeding 20,000 square feet for lots like this one that fall in the R170 zoning area. And then the STIPs directed that with the preliminary plat and then the final platting, that those envelopes be shown and represented in those submittals and reviews. So showing you some of those documents that I've been making reference to, this was the 1992 plan that came with that zoning case, showing the overall, again, it was Desert Sun, now Desert Summit development. The little yellow highlight up in the northern end here represents Lot 34. In this graphic, property lines were still very much conceptual. Those envelope locations do appear consistent, but moving in then to the amendment of the zoning case, again up in the upper area and the yellow highlight that I hope is showing up better on that screen there, but generally where my mouse is at, is Lot 34. Again, start to get a little more definition in this exhibit. You can also see I had made reference to sort of that open space area between those envelopes that was visually apparent on the aerial photograph. And there is some contours on here, but they're hard to see on this exhibit. They do show up a little bit better on the preliminary plat documents. This is from the 12 pp 1995, Lot 34. This document is rotated to the side because it was a two-piece plan sheet here, but Lot 34 is over here. You can see the parcel boundaries have been realized a little more at this point, and that topography is a little bit more evident on this plan, showing really how much upslope there is to the back ends of those lots. This is the page 2 of that, not relevant to Lot 34 necessarily, but in here just to not leave out the context. This slide gets into some of the materials that were provided from the applicant to represent their request. This exhibit is helpful in showing you with this cross-section that they've provided the amount of grade increase to get from the lower end of the lot, which is up near the street where the building envelope has been represented on the previous approvals, up to the higher end of the lot where they are looking to request that it be modified to In the context of the overhead view, 112th place being over off to the upper left there, that building envelope location existing is that more bolded bubble line, and then you can see some of the topography heading up the hill there. This exhibit that they've provided shows you a little better indication of the intended building envelope location. Maybe looking at the right side of the screen, that visualization probably helps show both for you. Again, the existing location being more that darkened boundary up near the street, the less shaded on this being the proposed building envelope with the driveway to get up to that portion of the property. As part of our review of this, we had noted that there are two different ESL landform areas within this development. Just for your context, there are three in total across the city. There is our lower desert landform, our upper desert landform, and hillside landform. The two present here are the upper desert, where most of the lots have developed. Most of those building envelopes align with the hillside landform, being sort of that central portion, which also includes a hilltop that was significant enough to protect with a conservation easement that sits generally in the middle of my label there that says hillside landform. So visually on this, we had concerns that although some of the other envelopes, the final constructed locations of homes surrounding that hillside landform do have encroachments, most of them are minor encroachments with the exception of lot 35, which is right next door. This was referenced in the applicant's materials. It's been discussed, and we had looked into it. We were not able to find a specific approval for a deviation of that envelope. This, knowingly or not, was approved through the permit plan review process and constructed in that location that is visually encroaching into the hillside landform. The original envelope was more over along the street frontage, similar to lot 34s on those other exhibits. And just to bring in, again, I had mentioned contours and topography on some of those other plans. We pulled this from our GIS data just to give you maybe an additional visual to go with that hillside landform area. And it represents sort of the contours rising up in that central area, which appears to have been intended to have been protected through the originally approved building envelope locations. So I mentioned us having concerns with that the DRB criteria were not being met. I've pulled the first three just up on the screen here real quick. The remaining ones talk about things in downtown. They talk about public art. They are less relevant to this discussion, but these three, just highlighting really quick, talk about consistency with design character of the applicable guidelines, development standards, design standards and policies, manual, master plans, character plans, general plan, and then going into that the character of site design shall be promoting the desirable relationship of structures to one another, to open space, topography, that they recognize unique climatic and environmental factors of the region and the desert environment, that they conform to the recommended guidelines of the environmentally sensitive lands ordinance, incorporate unique characteristics of, in this case, the property features, and that ingress, egress, and circulation is designed in a way to respond to those things. Walking through some of the analysis that we had provided in the staff report, we again had concerns that this really doesn't appear to be following what was set up and established by the zoning stipulations of both zoning cases and the preliminary plats case, and the carry forward of the implementation of those building envelopes with that approval process. It very much appears that those envelopes were used as a tool to restrict and control the individual lot development, staying within, or at least as much within as possible, the upper desert landform rather than the hillside landform area. I mentioned that Lot 35 is sort of the glaring exception to that, and it certainly is context, but it did not appear to be enough context to us to be able to support another modification that would do a similar encroachment, if you will. The other factor for that is, without having specific dimensions, it does appear that there may be conflict with the 60-foot minimum dimensional separation between that envelope location on Lot 35 and the proposed envelope location on Lot 34. As we didn't have a defined approval of that envelope location on 35, that's more of a visual analysis against the applicant's proposal, but still something concerning that would need to be identified if this proceeded forward. And then the third highlight on this slide is I had showed on the applicant's exhibit the driveway required to go up and access that higher portion of the lot. Doing so creates additional disturbance to the property, although the envelope size should be sort of equivalent and offsetting. The improvements needed to get there are not present when the envelope is up at the street line, and the driveway only needs to be the distance to get from the street into the property. I had made reference to the ESL ordinance and its purpose and how it drives preservation of open space. I wanted to just cover a few highlights from that in the purpose statement here. There are more than this in there, but these are the ones that seemed pertinent. So the first one talks about protecting and preserving natural and visual resources, and it lays out a list of things that highlight that natural terrain, natural features, these are in that realm of things intended to be preserved. That section talks about conserving the character of the natural desert, guiding the location and distribution of meaningful on-lot open space, and protecting sensitive environmental features to sustain the unique desert character. The third one talks about minimizing impacts of development by controlling the location, intensity, pattern design, construction techniques. The fourth about retaining the visual character of the natural landscape to the greatest extent feasible. And the fifth one there about maintaining significant open spaces which provide view corridors, buffers, protect landmarks and large boulders and wash corridors and other natural features of the site. So with all of that and staff's concerns and staff's inability to approve this at a lower level than bringing it to you, our recommendation is for a continuance to allow the applicant to explore alternative locations that may align better with the criteria with the ESL design guidelines. It appears a lot of the other envelopes over time have been treated as conceptual and moved small amounts. I don't have a dimension for what small amounts is, but visually small amounts. This proposal does quite a bit more than those other have, and that's why we're here in front of you this afternoon. With that, I'll wrap up staff's presentation. I know the applicant team is here and they're ready to present to you unless you had any immediate questions for me.
Okay, thank you so much. Are there any questions? First, yes.
If you could clarify for me, sir, the 60-foot separation has to do with NAOS as opposed to buildings, and the 75 feet relates to buildings? The 75-foot separation. This is a question. I'm just not sure that.
Councilwoman Littlefield, Commissioner Ertel, that stipulation is focused on NAOS the way it's written, and it talks about that dimension being a 60-foot width between building envelopes. So not necessarily contemplating the actual building location,
Right,
but
yeah,
the envelope-to-envelope condition.
And if I build a house on a lot and I put it right up against the lot line, and you had the lot next door, the burden is on you, totally on you, to maintain that 60-foot separation of NAOS and 75-foot separation of buildings?
Commissioner Ertel, I think there would certainly be conditions of the existing envelopes as represented. If there was a problem with those, that we may have trouble enforcing that more directly. The challenge in this is a request to modify and move an envelope, and so it certainly has to be a consideration in the new location of whether or not that creates any other issues.
Well, I read what it says, and it is what it is, and, I can not like it, but that doesn't change it. It is what it is. But at the same time, it would seem to make more sense to say, okay, the burden is on me to be 30 feet, my NAOS be 30 feet away from your NAOS, which has to be 30 feet, if I'm saying this right, and, half of 75 for the buildings. But I realize it doesn't say that. But then I guess we're here to consider exceptions. So anyway, thank you for clarifying.
And Commissioner, if I could provide maybe one more bit of context to that. Under normal circumstances, the envelopes were set through the zoning, the preliminary plat, the final plat. All of those were the developer controlled the totality of the lots. And so it wouldn't be intended to create a neighbor to neighbor who carries the burden. It should have been all distributed before anyone beyond the developer took ownership, built, and those sorts of things.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do have some requests to speak here. So,
I'd like to ask him some questions.
okay, we'd go right ahead.
Jeff, go forward a couple of slides to the plot plan. One more. Again. Right there. So the shaded area that's seen there at the top, that represents the area that's part of the natural drainage?
Councilwoman Littlefield, Board Member Pieser, that is my understanding. That does highlight what the applicant has reported as an area that does flood when there is stormwater.
So this information isn't historical information we have. This is information that we were given.
This sheet is provided from the applicant.
The dark line, and since I can't read any of that, that's the building boundary line that surrounds that?
The further
Yes.
out line, is I understand, is representative of
So
that.
you said earlier that a lot of these lots in this subdivision have seen those boundary lines move slightly. So there's more or less precedent set that says that if the house that's going in on this location couldn't fit on the dry area that's shown on this plan, that the boundary line could in fact be moved slightly. We wouldn't want somebody building in an area that's prone to flooding. So the city might accept adjusting that line enough to put the house in the same general location by moving that line, as we may have done on other lots in the same subdivision.
Board Member Pieser, I think you're correct in what you're saying. Part of our conversations leading up to this with the applicant team had contemplated, would we at a staff level be able to approve a deviation, a modification at somewhere in that lower elevation lot outside of the hillside landform area boundary, or at least minimally encroaching. The concern that was raised with that, and I'm sure the applicant team will bring that into detail as well, is the configuration of this parcel narrows quite significantly at sort of the midpoint of it, and that creates maybe a concern of not being able to achieve something partway up the hill and then looking beyond the pinch point to the further back part of the property.
But we can assume that you were talking about lot 35. You couldn't find anywhere where we approved the adjustment of the lot. That doesn't mean that there wasn't an approval made. We just can't find the paperwork. Because with so many checks and balances in our plan review system, when those plans came in, I know that your staff in your office checked those setbacks pretty stringently to make sure that they meet all the requirements of the zoning ordinance. And when the inspectors get out there, they've got a set of plans. They're on a lot this size, as I recall, they would not have been doing any measuring out there. They would have required a land surveyor to go out there and tell us that the house was located exactly where it was on the approved plans. Because when you get into these large lots, it's impossible to measure to corners of buildings. So my assumption would be that that approval of the adjustment of the lot line probably was made because of all the checks and the balances in the city's plan review system. We just simply don't have that approval. Would you agree with that assumption?
Board Member Pieser, I would agree that the process is intended to catch those things. In researching this, I did only locate one other through a case process like this modification in the further southeast portion of the development, which was not one of these more hillside type lots. But that adjacent home approval did go through the site plan review process. It, as far as I know, was built to plan, but very much unclear in our records if that adjustment was contemplated as part of that or missed entirely.
So on lot 34, what's the approximate size of the buildable area?
Based on the zoning stipulations, all of the ones in the R170 zoning should be that 20,000 square foot. The applicant team may have more specific numbers if that's not the case, but that would be my understanding.
Well, it just seems to me that if the buildable lot line can be adjusted to where the new structure stays in the general area of where the buildable lot is now, your concern is, by your presentation, is the further up you go that hill, the more you get into the hillside ordinance, the more you get into the protected areas, and you had a whole list of things there, the boulders and outcroppings and the animals that live up there. So, but in my mind, if you move that line enough to put a house in there, you're just talking about a cut and a fill situation.
Board member, that's very possible. I don't know if that's been explored from an engineering standpoint to say otherwise, but
Okay.
but certainly it was concepts discussed along the way that did not provide, as I understand it, the outcome needed for the applicant.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff.
Are there any other questions? Yes, Mr. Mason.
A couple of questions we've discussed before, and hearing this, looking at the existing building envelope that was shifted to close to the, I guess would be the property line on the lower left, then you would expand the buildable area away from the ponding area, so-called plain ponding area. And I look at this particular property, and I looked at this sheet here, you have the hillside overlay, and this particular lot would be, if the builder goes on, if the builder gets what he wants, it would be a major encroachment into that area, both for the driveway and for the lot. The other building, which is on lot 35, encroaches about the same degree. So if this goes through, are there concerns about that much encroachment on the hillside?
Councilman Littlefield, Board Member Mason, if I'm understanding your question, you're asking if we have concerns about the amount of encroachment for the proposed envelope location?
Yes.
Yes. Based on all of the analysis and the protection and looking at the ESL and what would be achieved current location versus proposed, yes, we do have concerns about that.
So if we continue the philosophy that suppose this particular buildable lot, which is, we said was drawn on a piece of paper without thorough review of the topography and what it meant in terms of water flows, and it is shifted anywhere on the lot, it looks like to me it's going to impact this hillside area to some degree. Is that a correct assumption?
It's quite likely, Board Member Mason, that moving it somewhat up out of that stormwater area, that drainage area, will have at least some level of encroachment to achieve the amount of building envelope and equivalent size of building envelope. But at least in our view, in looking at the context of all the information, that may be similar in impact to what other properties on the south side of that area and surrounding, again, with the exception of lot 35 next door, have done, minimizing that encroachment.
Mm-hmm. The other question we had talked about before was the earth movement situation. And I understand that at least the applicant told me that he thought it would be a net zero in terms of application, in terms of dirt movement, but that, of course, would remain for more detailed site plan and more detailed analysis, which is precisely what you're proposing to do by continuance, I would assume.
Board Member Mason, certainly if that's part of information that you would, as the board, need to see if you took a continuance route, at the present moment of the application, we were working with the applicant on providing at least the necessary information to convey the idea without sending them down a path of expense to do the level of engineering that might be needed to determine that.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Is the applicant present? Would you like to speak to us? Very good.
Thank you. And then, do I just use the keyboard? Okay. to see the timer. Good afternoon, Councilwoman Littlefield, Commissioner Ertel, and sir, thank you for your service, and members of the board. I'm Tom Galvin with Rose Law Group, proudly representing the Angeloni family. A lot has changed since this sketch of 1992 that was presented to you before, when a conceptual plan for a building envelope was considered. And think to yourselves how much your lives have changed since 1992. And I can tell you that the history of this lot has changed considerably since 1992. Circumstances outside of the control of the Angeloni family have certainly changed the circumstances of this lot. But also, this is an issue about property rights and about fairness. And frankly, I'm really surprised that this is a question happening here in Scottsdale, because you're going to see the arguments about property rights and fairness today. And I have to commend the commission members today, Mr. Ertel, Mr. Mason, and Mr. Pieser, because your questions got to the heart of the matter. When we talk about at the beginning the current building envelope as sketched out in 1992, indeed, as staff just told you, it's a stormwater drainage area. As you're going to see in our presentation, it's because of the owners of Lot 33. And then this lot, I would consider this lot a bow tie. This is a bow tie lot. So when you go to the midsection or the buckle area of this bow tie, it's too narrow and too steep to build. It's the area of the greatest disturbance, and it's the closest of proximity to Lot 35. And you heard directly from staff once again that Lot 35 did build a home outside of the approved building envelope. And the irony here is that we're going to show you 12 different places where this has occurred, where people have built in areas and not approved building envelopes. Tacit approval from the city of Scottsdale. The only thing that Mr. Angeloni and his family are guilty of is actually coming into the city of Scottsdale and making a formal request. And if this board cannot consider requests to a sketch of a conceptual idea from 1992, then why are we here? So we're going to show you how the proposed area is utilizing it in the most environmentally sensitive option. Architect Andy Gramlin is here to give any technical analysis if that is possible. So DRB has never heard a case like this before. The Angeloni family, to what we know, is the first family or applicant to make such an application here. This is an odd stipulation from 1995. They created building envelopes for each lot in order to protect and preserve NAOS. But guess what? Everything here today is protecting and preserving NAOS and ESL. This building envelope plan is the NOS plan. Wherever it gets approved, we'll still honor and have to abide by all ordinance and statutes in ESL and NAOS. The owner has to relocate the building envelope due to issues outside of their control, and the proposed relocation is the most sensible and least impactful required area of the site. And I want to show you, as you saw earlier, this sketch, if you look at Prop 35 directly above, you saw in the aerial that the house currently there is not in accordance with the sketch from 1992. This is the problem. When we talk about the current building envelope, you're taking a look at it. These two culverts were placed in here by the owners of Lot 33, which has now created years of flooding. It is impossible for the Angeloni family to build in the current building envelope, which is why they're humbly requesting you to make this modification here. Not permitted by the city of Scottsdale on either way, and I call this tongue-in-cheek a handmade retention wall. Now, if we look also at the current building envelope, it's 6 to 8 feet below the city street. Can you imagine that? This is a lower level that has been turned into a flooding retention area by culverts. As you heard directly from staff, this lower level is 6 to 8 feet below street level due to years of flooding. It's impossible for him to build here. Also, this sketch shows you how the site slopes up, and as you can see, the Angeloni family has put a lot of thought and consideration to this, and the proposed area is the least impactful to where they can build it, the least impactful to the disturbance of the land. And also, it is impossible, as you can see, and Mr. Pieser, you astutely pointed this out, look at all that retention area and storage water. That is because of what happened by the owners of Lot 33. Once again, these are hardships not created by the owner. The lower level, as you heard, has been turned into a flooding retention area by these culverts. And now let's take a look at Lot 35. That is the building envelope that was approved in 1992. And as we know by our research, it was never approved by the city of Scottsdale. So we're going to take tacit approval versus explicit denial. I think that that would be unfair. This Lot 35 completely abuts two sides on Lot 34. They have built large retaining walls and no privacy for either lots. It is forcing the applicant to put the building envelope where he thinks it's best on considering what is happening because of the owners of Lot 33 and Lot 35. Once again, now in this middle section, which we call the bow tie, it's too narrow and too steep to build. If we now move further on, this is the perfect answer. This is the most logical answer, and it's the compromise. This is the answer that satisfied all 3 lots. It's the least disturbance, it protects significant vegetation, least excavation, easily graded for flat building area, exceeds NAOS requirements, which is important, meets building envelope size. The home is nestled into the contours of the property, privacy for all neighbors involved, and protects, preserves, and complies with ESL is just, to me, a no-brainer in light of the difficulties of the 2 other proposed locations of the lot. As you can see here, once again, this is where it would go. And there was a great question earlier about whether it's 600 feet or 60 feet or 30 feet. Yeah, and so as you can see, building 30, the building that was put in the adjoining lot is now forcing them to be the only ones to comply with that standard. And as you can see here, what was the original intention? Well, the Planning Commission recommended unanimous approval for this case, but the discussion centered around the applicant's adherence to the ESLO requirements and the additional amount of natural area preserved in this project. It would still happen in this case if you approved it. And once again, development on the site is currently required to follow all stipulations, requiring maximum building envelope sizes, minimum distances for NAOS, and other criteria necessary to preserve the desert character of the area. Once again, the applicant is doing that. And so I want to show you that we are doing everything we can to protect and present as much as possible desert and with the least possible disturbance. And this is what you see, a beautiful plan that incorporates the history of the site and also is sensitive and respectful of the neighboring lots. This here you can see it respects and honors NAOS, it respects and honors ESL because it has to. It has to comply with all of these standards in the compliance with the required building envelope size, compliance with required setbacks, and meets the initial intent from 1992, 1993, 1995 approvals to preserve and protect ESL. And there was discussion about a driveway earlier, this proposed driveway. Guess what? It's the same size as driveways on the other lots. Nothing different, nothing unique. The only thing unique is that this applicant has come in to make a formal request. So once again, this is the least amount of disturbance, protects the most natural desert and building outcrops, preserves the most vegetation, and allows the owner to enjoy the same development rights as the surrounding neighbors. As I said earlier, it's a question of fairness. It's unfair what the applicant has had to go through, what the applicant has had to endure, witnessing the city of Scottsdale tacitly approving other sites, and I'm going to show you all 12. City of Scottsdale does not have any record of these 12 properties coming in and asking for the Design Review Board to move or modify these building envelopes. The applicant has done so and humbly requests that you approve this common sense plan. Most importantly, utilizing the saddle will allow for greater, lower compliance, and we think it's just vitally important. And I'm going to reserve 2 minutes for the architect to provide you any technical analysis, and we do ask time for rebuttal after any opposition speakers. Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate it.
Good afternoon. Do I press the button? Okay. Good afternoon. I appreciate the board meeting with us here. A couple of things I would just like to add on to this. There, look at the unique Andrew Gramling, architect, and for the record, I've been working primarily in Scottsdale for the last 30 years. I actually know both the gentlemen, the planners that are here today, and I think I can speak to having a great deal of experience in hillside lots. I came from California where we did nothing on hillside lots, and one of the things on the building envelope exhibit that Tom brought up was that I actually looked at the driveway and where we would put the building envelope and was able to come up with, I believe, a solution where a house and a design could be a maximum of like a 5 or 6 foot retaining wall for the entire project. That's pretty much unheard of on hillside. So we look for a spot on the property where that would happen. This was it. I mean, if we were built into that into the center of the bow tie area, we're going to end up with one of those wedding cake retaining walls, like I'm sure you've seen in subdivision with a stack, stack, stack. That's the last thing we want. If we can nestle this in a flat spot tucked up in the hill, do a one-story house with a walkout basement, and it's going to be barely visible from everybody else. And it's also probably going to be the least expensive place to build as well, which is also considered. I'm about making these projects a win-win. Who wants to spend $200,000, $300,000 on retaining walls like we would have to in the bow tie area to make it look ugly? That seems like a lose-lose to me. So I would respectfully suggest that I've been looking at this thing for a year and a half, and is it possible to put something in the middle of the lot? Well, yeah, anything's possible with enough money and disturbance, but this area makes the most sense because it impacts everyone the least. It impacts the site the least with minimal amount of grading. The driveway is purposefully meanders with the site, with the topography, so that it just climbs up the hill, not arbitrarily just ran straight up the hill with giant retaining walls, because frankly, that's the last thing we want to do. Unless anybody has any questions, I think Tom summed it up pretty well.
Do I have any questions from the council? Yes,
Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Ertel?
I didn't realize before maybe I just missed it, but that the retention pond is created by those that culvert that comes from another property? Is that the whole reason for it to be a swampy or whatever? Have you considered blocking up that culvert? I mean, it's oh, it flows away, you're saying?
Yeah, Councilman Ortel, yeah, that, or Board Member Ortel, that, the city would never approve that. If we block a drainage way, I can speak from numerous times experience, speaking with the engineering and drainage brethren of our planners here, that would create a storm that I don't even want to go near. If we brought it up, it would likely end up in lawsuits and never be approved. You can't just block existing drainage ways, even if it does not match the historical data, because the owners of Lot 33 are the builders. I won't say the current owners ignored the historical flow of the wash, which actually went under the street, and just decided to use our lot as a retention basin. And we're stuck with that. So we're respectfully asking for some relief from that, because we didn't create this problem. We just want to build on it before Johnny gets old and dies. Yeah, exactly.
Could you repeat that? I didn't hear what he said.
Hold on. Can I ask a question here?
Board Member Brand?
I have a question, because I don't want kind of conjecture and from the applicant. I'd really like to ask staff, is there a drainage easement on this property? What is the history of what was planned for the drainage in this area, and what's constructed there, and what are the actual possibilities from a drainage solution from the city standpoint?
Vice Chair Brand, I have not seen an actual recorded drainage easement over that location, which would signify that it's not an official retention basin for the development. We did have our stormwater staff take a preliminary look at least the materials that were provided. Unfortunately, their indication, as would normally be the case, is that they would need to see hydraulic analysis, grading and drainage plans, the more extensive analysis from a civil engineer to determine what the right approach to that. But my general understanding is that topography slopes down to that end and historically would have continued on to a wash corridor that is further north of there and drained out. And so it may very well be that the improvements that are there are backing up water into that location, but I don't have more technical analysis than that.
So you don't have access to what the intention was for the original layout for stormwater control on this site. I think that's what we're looking for. If we're looking at the building envelope studies from 95 and 92, what was the stormwater management concept that went with all this from 92 through 95? Does staff have a definitive answer on that?
Vice Chair Brand, from the information I've seen, again, it seems like the water flow was intended to come down through that area and continue on.
Continue northbound?
North into there's a wash slightly further north on the other side of Lot 33.
Councilwoman Littlefield and Commissioner Ortella, members of the board, we actually have an exhibit addressing that question regarding the wash, if we're able to get this machine up to show it to you. If someone can help. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Sorry, I like the technical expertise to. Oh, right side up. Oh, there you go. Design Review Board members, you can kind of see here where the intent of the water was actually on Lot 33 was meant to go under the road. Their improvement plans, which are available as a public record, show they were supposed to put culverts under the road to drain the waterway. But unfortunately, they elected to dump the water on our site, and we have looked at the building inspection list, and the city of Scottsdale actually approved it this way. So we're kind of baffled. We don't want to end up this thing in a courtroom. We want to be able to build a house. So somewhere along the line, it was deemed okay to dump all the water onto our property as opposed to follow historical drainage patterns, and we're looking for a solution. I mean, it's really that simple.
Chair?
At least this, I appreciate the exhibit. So the intention, without talking about anything else, but the intention for this site, though, was to have a wash on the north side that runs, it looks like it runs westward. It's coming off of the eastbound hills, making its way north and running westward. Is that correct, Mr. Barnes? Through an intended wash, whether the wash is over top of the roadway or through a culvert, the intention is to run into that wash that's located directly north of the property.
Vice Chair, that's my understanding. I don't recall if the movement was east or west at that point,
Okay.
but yes.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question. I don't have another question for the applicant.
Board Member Attell?
Yeah, Jeff may have clarified this, but originally I thought that the culverts were draining from 33 into 34, and then I'm hearing that no, it's going from 34 to 33. 33 is north, I believe, right? So they're saying it's draining north?
Councilman Attell, no, you were correct in your initial assumption. It drains upon our property, which has created the hardship, which is one of the primary reasons we're here today, because it's unbuildable right now.
Right, okay, and even if you could block up the culvert, that's going to create a problem for 33. I mean, it's not that 33 was simply being malicious in doing this. They had a problem, and they were, I assume, they needed to drain their property, and this is the way they did it. To your disadvantage, obviously, to detriment, but so it wouldn't, even if you could block that culvert, it wouldn't make sense for the community. Is that fair to say?
I think it's fair to say if we blocked the cul-de-sac, there would be a lawsuit between the two parties on the adjacent lots. Right. It's there now, Mr. Board Member, and we're just trying to resolve the problem without causing any undue stress for anybody else. And I think we did a pretty good presentation of why we did what we did. To further clarify, Johnny asked me, could you do a house, again, on the bow tie portion of the lot? And I said, yeah, it's possible. Not going to be pretty, though, and that's something that I think if we talk about the environmentally sensitive land ordinance, where we put it disturbs the least. I mean, as far as we're not going to end up with stacked retaining walls. We can actually work with the site as opposed to fighting it to impose kind of our will on it and come up with, I feel, will be a very valuable home to probably an asset to the community and improve everybody's property value. So I don't know why we're here, frankly. It seems like this is a first in 30 years of dealing with Scottsdale where something like this has come up.
So just to summarize, if you build down close to the road, there's a water problem. If you build at the knot of the bow tie, then you've got an aesthetic problem. And if you build where you want to build, you know, it's a slight encroachment on, but not without precedent.
That's a fair assessment, yes.
Thank you.
I would like to clarify that assessment by our city staff and not by the applicant, though. That's why I would really love if we had someone from our stormwater in here who could give an assessment and our staff opinion about how the flows and the historical flows and the current flows in this site are managed. I would rather have that question answered for this board by our own city staff. But I don't know that we have that person here to talk about that.
Vice Chair, we do not.
Okay.
But I would say that whether the water is coming from 33 onto 34 or from 34 onto 33, there is still a water issue at that if you would try to build close to the road, there's a water issue.
Yes.
Councilman Littlefield, if I may, Commissioner Ertel, members of the board. The water is coming from 33. It's not coming from 34. And also, as you see here from the City of Scottsdale exhibit, you see where the water is intended to go. And we also heard earlier from staff's own presentation that they're now referring to the area which is currently the building envelope for the applicant as a stormwater drainage basin. And as you can see in this exhibit here from the city itself, it's not supposed to be a stormwater drainage basin. It's created a serious problem for the applicant. The applicant actually could pursue several paths in the legal system, but is deciding not to. Wants to take the path of least resistance, which is building a house in the proposed location so as not to bother Lot 33 or 34 or put them through an arduous and rigorous litigation process. To us, it's just, as you heard earlier from the architect, it's a win-win solution dealing in light of the conditions not created by the applicant. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Barnes.
Councilman, sorry, I'd just like to make a clarification if I could. It was stated that staff characterized that as a retention area in our presentation. The mention to that was relative to the exhibit that was provided from the applicant team. So I don't want to continue to represent that we think that that's a stormwater retention area defined by a drainage easement, as Mr. Brand had pointed out, is typically what happens. The larger portion of that wash that the water is intended to go to is protected by a drainage easement. It is where intended water flow goes. And so I just, for the benefit of context, wanted to make that statement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other comments or questions? Yes, Mr. Mason.
I have one other question concerning this particular thing after having heard and listened to the water issue. It seems to be a major concern whether the water flows into or out of. The fact that the culvert has created a position where it has impacted the flow of water, which is going to, don't know how much ponding will occur, but it seems to me there will be some ponding. And having heard a lot of things, it seems to me that one way to look at this is if the applicant is saying that the existing or the current building envelope, approved building envelope, has certain problems that render it building extremely difficult. However, solving those moves it up here. So you're essentially saying that, well, because of the passage of time and errors made and so forth are not made, that you're asking that the simple solution is just move the building envelope. Is that a fair assessment?
Councilwoman Littlefield, Commissioner Ertel, members of the board, short answer, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, are there any other questions from the council? Okay, I do have some speakers who would like to speak, so I'll call them up. First, I have Mr. Thomas Winshow? I'm sorry, Weinhold. I apologize.
Good afternoon. My name is Thomas Weinhold. I live in Desert Summit on Lot 106. We built there when the subdivision was first started, watched all the homes go up. There have been homes that do have stacked retaining walls that was referenced. That's not ideal, but those hillsides were so steep that it kind of became mandatory. But I think from the considerations that I understand are important to the city, if you go to the top of the lot, you're cutting off the top of a hill. I don't think that's encouraged by the city. Secondly, if the home is located there, the home to the east will be directly impacted line of sight, as far as I can tell. And the home to the west on lot 35, they'll be looking right down on that home. I would imagine they wouldn't be very happy about that. I've been a licensed real estate agent and broker since 1977, both residential, commercial. I'm pretty familiar with construction and design. My mom was a designer. And I'm pretty sure, I'm not an expert, I'm pretty sure you can find a spot a little further up the hill, minimal cut and fill, there would be a retaining wall. I think there would be plenty of lot width. You do not have to go to the bow tie itself to create what I would think would be a very, very fine home location. Something similar to that I think was approved previously on a home that never got built because a homeowner across the street bought the lot so the house wouldn't be built. But that design nestled into the side of the hill. That elevation change is not dramatic right above that so-called drainage area. And so I think an architect could come up with a very nice design that would look very attractive and fit in a lot better. Thank you. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon. As you said, Mark Fisher. I'm actually lot 33, not Culvert. So a couple things. My wife and I purchased this home back in 2021, and we did our research before we bought the home, and that lot was available, lot 34 next to us, and we bought the house we bought because of our privacy in our backyard. The driveway that is proposed by lot 34 would completely change that privacy. Moving it all the way up top would also majorly disturb our privacy. We did just recently do a major remodel inside the house where we spent a lot of money. We moved down here, it was a second home for us. We moved down here permanently from Colorado here. I moved my job down here, so it would definitely be a huge privacy issue for us that we were not aware of, and we knew when we purchased the house and the investment we made in this beautiful neighborhood. The other thing I do want to say is I'm a CFO and a COO. I'm not an engineer, and I'm not a water person. I am familiar with that cinder block wall that goes around. I was told by the realtor and the previous owner that all that was marking the lot line. We have done some different mitigation because we're on the steepest part of the hill that sits behind us, and we've done some mitigation with water. But even before we did that, I never, ever once, and we're on the floor as well, ever once, water, and we were down here for monsoons and everything else, water never encroached into our property. There is a huge drainage basin. So again, lot 33, we are to the left of obviously lot 34. If you're looking at it to the street, there's a driveway. There is a huge drainage ditch that runs on the left side of our driveway, so further away from lot 34. And then there is a small drainage that comes down in between lot 34 and 33. So I would definitely recommend the city to do some kind of water look at that. And, you know, I think we would be open if there was a drainage issue to move it slightly back to get it out of that issue. But I think that's something that the board and the commission should strongly consider. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Kelly Clark.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me today. I am the owner of Lot 35. My husband and I live there full-time with our 3 kids. When we designed and built our home, it was with the consideration of the other building envelopes around. The home, obviously, we have a lot of privacy, and if the building envelope was changed to the top where that is, the new owner would be looking directly into our living room, into our daughter's bedroom, and we built and designed our home so that the other homeowners and properties around would have that same consideration of privacy. Since we've been there, we have never seen an issue with drainage. We've been there almost 4 years. I have looked at, I know Mr. Angeloni, representatives have talked about his history of the property, and they purchased the property in 2020 when we were already building. Our home was completed in 2021, but we were already building when they purchased the property. If you look at listings that they have, I looked on Zillow, and they had they purchased the property for $425,000, and the most recent listing was $1.275 million. I'm sorry, I get a little nervous. Their description online on Zillow when they had listed the property was describing what would be the new site, which is not approved. They did say that the description was to overlook every home in the neighborhood on top of the hill. So it definitely, changing that would definitely be a disturbance to the community, not consistent with what the community has right now, cause a lot of privacy issues. I do think that there is some compromise that can be made, moving their buildable envelope up a little bit. I'm not an architect or a designer, but being a homeowner that lives there, I've never seen an issue with flooding. I think there's a lot of compromise other than chopping down the top of that hill and making it the home that overlooks, as they stated, every other home in the neighborhood and the highest point of the neighborhood, which is what they desire. It is not nestled into the community as what they're saying, and it does not allow for privacy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And our last speaker will be Daniel Proco.
Thank you much, Daniel Proco. I'm on the southeast side of Lot 34 and Lot 64. I'm also here on behalf of Ron Cohen, Ron and Natalie Cohen, who live in Lot 63, which is on the south side of the property here. Not brought up so far as the fact that their house is pretty much at the location that this changed envelope would be, at the south side, would be looking into their north side, the back of their house. So that has not yet been brought up. As far as we're concerned, most of my input I provided directly to Mr. Barnes, and I appreciate the opportunity to provide that. My concerns are, under the HOA guidelines, the architectural guidelines, there are a lot of stipulations in there about perching houses, and I'm paraphrasing. I'm not going to use legal terms and such. But there's all concerns about maintaining the natural neighborhood, the landscape, et cetera, and not to be putting buildings at excessive heights in the neighborhood. So in this case, as some of the others have pointed out, that would be the case. As far as I'm concerned, and Mr. Cohen, from our perspective, if this envelope was built or allowed more north on the Lot 34 plot, obviously that would be acceptable. It's on the southern portion that we would have a problem with. That's all I have unless there are questions.
Do we have any questions?
Thank you.
No. Thank you very much, sir. And that is all of the request to speak cards that I have received here today. Continue and speak to the speakers.
Councilwoman Littlefield, Commissioner Ertel, members of the board, thank you so much for this opportunity for rebuttal. I just want to point out each of the points made by the speakers. First of all, the first speaker and the last speaker for lots 106 and 64 are not even close to the lot here in question, but I do want to address the issues raised by the owners of lots 33 and 35, and I appreciate that they're here because it's important what they did not say. They did not say that they came to this board and asked to build outside of the building envelopes. And the questions that they raised, I appreciate it, and the issues that they raised, I appreciate it, but the conditions also, they have to take light of the fact that they did not build according to the building envelopes. It's important also that the owner of Lot 33 also acknowledged and said that there's an issue with drainage and there's a problem and is begging the city for help to address this question. So I think that answers once and for all that there is a stormwater retention drainage basin issue at the current location of the building envelope. And if you look at Lot 35, absolutely outside of the building envelope, and no indication that they came in before this board to make a humble request as the applicant is doing today, and did so abutting the property line of Lot 34. And look how much open space is on the rest of the lot. Also, I do want to say that the applicant has made, in a spirit of cooperation and compromise, is willing to see if the board is happy to entertain any spot and to work with staff beyond what we call the bow tie, where the property hinges. That is obviously the most appropriate spot. You have heard here today how the applicant has done everything bending over backwards to accommodate the neighbors. And so if the board can consider that, then ask the applicant to work with staff for the most appropriate location beyond the hinge of the bow tie. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions or comments from this board?
I have a question.
Yes.
I know that the applicant has done a significant amount of building envelope discovery in the neighborhood. Can you identify a building envelope that's completely within the hillside area of the development? Staff had shown a designation of what was considered hillside.
Councilwoman Littlefield, Commissioner Ertel, members of the board, Mr. Brand, lot number 35.
Is a 100% within the hillside area? Is that, can I get a clarification from Mr. Barnes on that?
Vice Chair, I believe I have a slide that showed that. My recollection of that slide is it does show that Lot 35 would be the one that is.
It's 100% located within the hillside area.
I don't know if I can say that without pulling it up on the screen.
Okay, it did not look like that from the initial designation of the zoning case from 92 to 95. It did not look like the entirety of that building. You'll need to scroll back to the shaded exhibit of the initial zoning summary in the staff presentation. Yeah.
Hi, Andy Gremling, architect again. Yeah, we're looking, there it goes. You can kind of see where the, it doesn't highlight very well, but the Lot 34 does in fact pretty much built almost entirely in the hillside and completely out of the original building envelope. And we don't frankly have a problem with that. We're just looking at where the lots on 33 and 34 the houses were actually built. We just want the same consideration. And as far as views, I truly appreciate the views of the neighbors. We're not going to have big windows looking into driveways or anything else. This is going to be a custom house where we're focusing on our view corridors that are existing. Again, when I talked about win-win earlier.
I had my question answered, though.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, thank you. My other question is I didn't see anywhere on here where it looked like there is, I will just say my opinion on this, and I feel the need to speak to this, is that the location of this building envelope is in complete opposition to the established building envelopes of this project. I would agree that there is a drainage problem and there is a little bit of a buildability problem, but that doesn't mean that it's a non-buildable site. It just means that historically there's been water flow that's disrupted the site. And I would also say that disruption from a cut-fill standpoint is different from disruption of a visual marker of desert landscape. The intent of the entire plan of this entire neighborhood was to preserve the hillside landform, and you were talking about putting a house on top of the hillside landform. That is what you were talking about, putting a house on top of the hill. Is that not what you're proposing? The highest portion of your site, you're proposing your building envelope.
Board Member Brand, no, I appreciate the comment, and we have given, as I said, a great deal of thought to this. The answer is no. The house continues up the hillside. If you look at the topography, there's a much bigger hill behind Lot 34 and a summit up on
right, I'm talking
Lot
about
33. We're actually looking at a low spot, happens to be on the upper portion of the lot, and we were looking at this area. Essentially, we can do a house that fits within the hillside and not dominate on top of it. If we were to move it to like the area we call the bow tie, visually, you're going to see a house that appears to be twice as tall with nothing but retaining walls out front. And forgive me, that doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense.
I appreciate it, but it also doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to build your house on the highest land point on your property.
Councilwoman Littlefield, Commissioner Ortel, members of the board, Board Member Brand, it's not on the highest point of the property. It's on a portion that the applicant calls the saddle. And as the architect just laid out, and just to show exactly where it is, just want to make that distinction. It's not on the highest point of the property. Thank you.
Okay, I will sum up my comments with, I do feel like there is difficulty on the front side of the site considering the culvert location, but I also feel that a much more appropriate request would be to configure a building envelope that is slightly recessed in the site, has a little bit more disturbance into the area, but still maintains the initial characteristics of how this entire neighborhood was organized and platted and zoned with respect to building envelope. I don't dismiss the fact that there is difficulty with the drainage situation and some of the pieces of the site, but to completely reverse the intended building envelope from the initial, it seems out of character with how the entire city approaches ESL and NAOS and our hillside ordinances. It's in complete conflict with everything that the city has put forward with from an ESL and NAOS standpoint. So I appreciate it, and I also would be in support of modification of some of the language about the 60-foot NAOS if the building envelope needed to be a little bit wider to accommodate this and to make sure you're not disturbing. I think that's a different ask and a different question, but what is being asked today I would not be in support of. So I appreciate your time and presentation, but I would not be in support of it.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Littlefield may make one more comment. Oh, Mr. Mason wants to say something.
Yes, go ahead, one more point.
Okay, just want to make two points. One regarding impossibility. I'm sorry, Councilwoman Littlefield, impossibility in guards, it's impossible for the applicant to build at the locations that we laid out. And two, compromise. The applicant has just indicated that they're willing for the board to provide direction to staff to work with the applicant on any point of the property after the hinge point of the bow tie. So now the applicant is offering in good spirited cooperation, not necessarily the building envelope it requested, which obviously would be happy to do so if the board decided, but is willing to entertain to work with staff after that hinge point of the bow tie. And also ask yourselves that any of those 12 properties that are circled in our presentation come in and ask this board to build outside their building envelope, you know the answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Mason.
I have one referring back to the proposed building site. And what you're saying to me is that if you put a low-level house in that area, you will essentially be cutting off the peak of that particular lot, part of it. And it'll be more nestled in, be not as visible, be slightly below the hilltop mass to the, I guess it's the southeast.
Councilman Mason, yeah, I think in all honesty, we haven't designed a house yet because we are actually asking for a blessing of where to put it. But to answer your question, assuming we go ahead at some point, I'm a big advocate of the kind of Frank Lloyd Wright style. A house should be of the site, not dominated. We would certainly do our best to make it look with the site and minimize the impact on it in visualization because we don't need a two-story house at the top of the hill. I think we can design around it so that we preserve the hilltops on the adjacent properties. It'll still be significantly taller than the highest point on our property. I can say that with some confidence.
When I talked to Mr. Angeloni about this, and I've let the board know, that he had indicated what he intended to do was to put a large basement, essentially a garage underneath the house, and build a one-level house on top. The question there is, if the hillside elevation in the back is at a certain level, that would imply then that the roof would be at a lower level, if that's what he's in fact proposing.
Yes, sir. Again, I don't want my name on a monstrosity up on the hillside either. If it may speak as an egotistical architect, I want this to look good too. I want this to be in my portfolio, and if something looks way out of place or like a sore thumb on a hillside, that would be, again, one of those lose-lose. I am confident if the staff gave us some direction on where we could build, even if it's not the ideal point at the top, we could come up with something that would be a true asset for the community and take great care to not impinge upon the neighbor's privacy. Again, we wouldn't want to look in their backyard. That would be, again, a lose-lose. There's ways to design houses where you focus on view corridors and make it an asset for everybody.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from this council, from this board? Excuse me. Okay. Mr. Barnes, do you have anything to add to all this? I'm going to break protocol here for a minute and see if you have anything to add.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I'm going to ask our presentation staff to advance one slide. Just in all of the discussion about topography, I'm not sure if this helps, and I believe Mr. Carr had maybe a comment to make, so I'll turn the microphone over to him.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff and Councilwoman and board members. Yeah, I just wanted to bring this up because maybe it gives a little bit of highlight to discussion about where the peaks are on these hills relative to topography. So just, a point to show that for your own benefit.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from this board? Yes.
I spent quite a bit of time looking at the diagrams for the site, and I agree with Board Member Brandt on several of the things he said. Right now, my feeling is I don't understand enough about the drainage of how it works on this area. I've had quite a bit of experience in hillside development, having lived in Oregon for 30 years, and there are things that, before I would approve this, that I would like to see done. I mean, you say you're avoiding vegetation, you say you're avoiding rock outcroppings, yet there's no mapping, no diagrams of what is being avoided. I also wonder if through this area there's a wildlife corridor, and if building on top of the hillside would disrupt that corridor. It is a sensitive area, and it's a sensitive area for specific reasons. And I think that, for me to make a decision in support of this, I would need more information.
Thank you, Member Robinson. Yeah, in our research, we found nothing as far as a wildlife corridor. I mean, I've scoured the city's website, frankly, looking for examples of where we were not asking for anything unique. And in terms of the with the hill, you can kind of see where the two hillsides are actually behind Lot 34 and Lot 33. And we were proposing to kind of nestle into that little baby hilltop on our site and kind of work with it, not against it. Because we can't, I was mentioning to my client earlier, asking for kind of what we want to do is the city, and Jeff can back me on this, well, show me what you want to do, and then we can look at it. Well, we want to know where we can build before we spend a lot of my time's money designing a house, right? So it's not There's intentionally vague, right, not intentionally vague, but preliminary, because we don't know, based on what you guys decide here today, where the house could be. And until we do that, we frankly haven't even said, other than Johnny's, I want a basement and a house above. That is the extent of the design so far, because I'm not presumptive enough to just assume the city is going to approve what we think is a wonderful idea.
I would just make a statement. I feel like the crux of this entire conversation is about hardship, and the hardship that the applicant has talked about on the existing current envelope. And I really don't feel that we've got enough input from staff and from our drainage and stormwater staff to get a handle on what is the hardship here, so that we can correctly make a judgment call on how to essentially how to allow for a deviation from an envelope based on hardship, and whether or not this is a hardship that has off-site causation, or if it's a hardship just because of the nature of the site and the drainage pathway, or if it's a hardship that's been created by the city. We haven't heard. All we're hearing is, honestly, we're hearing people's opinion on this and where it came from, but I would really love to hear this from our staff, and I am going to make a motion for continuance to work with staff on this so that we can have more information, because the basis for a hardship modification has to be understanding the hardship. And I personally don't have a great understanding of the hardship, other than it doesn't look like it's going to be easy to build on. And it's going to cost us more money to build more retaining walls. Those aren't good enough reasons for me to subvert our hillside ordinances in the city.
I'll second that motion.
Well, I said I'm going to make the motion.
Oh, I thought you made it.
No, I didn't make it yet.
I would think you're right.
Councilman Littlefield, may I make one comment to that point by the board member, and Councilwoman Littlefield, Commissioner Ertel, members of the board. Mr. Angeloni and his family have spent a considerable amount of time and money dealing with this issue. If they wanted to go ahead and build something, they could go ahead and build it. They wouldn't want to go through this really arduous, difficult, and frankly frustrating process. Also, they've been dealing with city staff for how long? Over a year. City staff is very well aware of the drainage issue that has created the impossibility for this situation. And if city staff had any other evidence, Mr. Brand, that would be contrary to what we are telling you today, they would be definitely offering it. This is what you saw in our exhibits, are the culverts directly leading from a wash to a part of the property that's 6 to 8 feet below the street level. If Mr. Angeloni and his family were able to build on that site, they would. But now they're coming to the DRB in a formal process, and if they have to get this process continued, then it's just a message to everyone else in the city of Scottsdale. You know what? Do what Lot 33 did. Do what Lot 35 did, and build outside the building envelope, as opposed to Mr. Angeloni, who has worked with day one with city staff in the city of Scottsdale to do it the right way, and just making a simple request at this point to allow the building envelope to be somewhere beyond the hinge of the bow tie, and to do so with staff's cooperation. So we do ask for that. Thank you.
I'm going to make a motion. I'm going to move to continue case 12-PP-1995, number 2, to a date to be determined with direction to the applicant to seek an alternative building envelope location configuration that aligns better with the prior stipulations for the subdivision.
Second.
Councilwoman Littlefield,
Yes?
Vice Chair Brand,
Yes.
Commissioner Ertel,
No.
Board Member Pieser,
Yes.
Board Member Mason,
No.
Board Member Robinson.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Carr, do you have anything else for this board this afternoon?
Madam Chair, I do not. Thank you.
Okay. Then, seeing that we have completed our business, I move for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are adjourned.